Hello and welcome to another episode of the Autocar Professional Dialogue. Our guest today is someone who is a very strong proponent of electric mobility. So much so that despite two failures, he did not give up, but and attempted again to set up his electric vehicle business, which is now a leading player in its space. I'm talking about Mr. Naveen Munjal, Managing Director of Hero Eco Group. And as I said, Hero Electric is the leading player in its space of two-wheeler electric. Mr. Munjal, thank you for joining us on this show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you.
How does this year look like for you, for both for Hero Electric and at a larger perspective, the industry?
So what we are seeing is there is a market shift which is happening. So right now, the majority of the market, so if you look at the overall EV market, and that's more the two-wheelers I'm talking about, not any other form of vehicle. So if you look at that, the majority of the vehicles actually are in the low speed category, or what we define as the comfort speed category. And then we've got a second category, which we've defined, which we've come up with, and that's called the city speed category. A city speed category is a vehicle about 45 kilometers an hour, 42 to 45 kilometers, and with a range of about 80 odd kilometers. It could go up to about 200 kilometers, depending on what configuration you want to choose. And then you've got a third category, which is the higher speed category. So right now, the base of the pyramid is more the low speed category, where a registration license is not required. But we can see a shift happening from there to the city speed category, where we've been able to get the pricing to a very economical level. The running cost is very low. Like I said, the initial purchase price is very low. And these vehicles, the warranties are for 5 years. So they are performing very well in an urban and in an environment where you're using the two-wheeler as a means of transport.
Right. And this year, I mean, Hero Electric, as I understand, clocked decent growth even in a pandemic hit year. This year, what kind of projections do you have for Hero Electric, and are you taking any new initiatives which will pave the road for a better adoption of electric two-wheelers?
So when we look at 2021 as against 1920, we've had a substantial growth in spite of all the challenges and problems which we all know about. Supply chains getting hit and lockdowns and closures, etc. So we have had in excess of 15% growth over the previous year. Now, when I look at the last quarter of 2021, of 20 to 21 financial year, we are already at a run rate of in excess of about 8,500 units per month. So that's the kind of growth rate that we've come into 21-22 into. Last year, we closed at about 53,500 units, or 54,500 units. And this year, we are estimating to minimum of double that number to about 100,000 units is what we're looking at for 21-22. The growth rate is there from our side. The trend is there. The market pull is there. And the interesting part is, while we had about 8,500 manufactured units or shipped out units in March, our actually retail sales were in excess of 10,500 units. So that's a very positive sign that we've got there. So the stock inventory in the market actually reduced somewhat during the last quarter.
Right. And also in terms of your new initiatives to kind of ensure, which will help facilitate the adoption of EVs. Are you planning anything maybe independently as Hero Electric or in partnership with other players?
So there's a number of things that we're actually doing, and those are all resulting in a very, not just a positive image for the brand and the company, but we can see that in numbers as well. One of the great things that we're doing, and that is going to help the entire industry, is this reskilling of the roadside mechanic, what we call as PGOs, preferred garage owners. So we've already trained about 5,000 of these people in the last year and a half, 2 years. The idea is to take that number up to about 20,000 in the next couple of years. The second thing what we're doing is installing a charging infrastructure in dense populated areas where you would go on a normal basis in markets, etc., where you could, if you require to, you could actually charge your vehicle there. And that even a half an hour charge would give you about 10, 20 kilometers, depending on which vehicle and what battery you've got. So in terms of the flexibility that we are offering the customer, we've got vehicles, we've got 6 platforms, 13 models on top of that, and vehicles geared for entry level, B2B, premium end of the comfort category, city speed, entry level, city speed, premium end. So we've got the whole base covered. And we are offering customers vehicles which would go anything from about 80 odd kilometers to 210 kilometers, depending on what your requirement is, how many batteries you want. And the interesting part, what we've done across our entire product range is that the batteries are portable. So even if you're in a block of apartments where you don't have charging infrastructure downstairs, you can take the battery up. It's about 9.5 kilos. Take the battery up to your apartment, charge it, plug it back into the vehicle, and off you go. And so we are offering convenience, ease of use, initial purchase price is lower. Your total cost of ownership is very, very low as compared to IC engine vehicles. Just to give you a perspective, if you're commuting about, let's say, 50 kilometers a day or 40 kilometers a day, and over, let's say, a 3-year period, if you're using that vehicle every day, you're looking at about 1 liter of fuel for an IC engine vehicle, which is going to cost you anything about 90 rupees to 100 rupees. Whereas when you look at electric, in a city speed vehicle, it's going to cost you about 1.5 units of power. So about 12 rupees of power that you're using. So over 1,000 day, over 3 years, you're looking at about 12,000 versus 90,000 there. And so the 78,000 price difference, it actually, your vehicle has become free in that whole process. And so the cost of running is extremely low for these vehicles as well. And
but I don't think that awareness of these kind of calculation is quite common yet. So maybe are you doing anything to kind of make people more aware or aware about not only the economics of running an EV, but also operating an EV or using an EV?
So what happens is, when we look at B2B, so when we consider B2B segment, in B2B, people actually understand this much better, the customers, because that's what they do. They calculate on a day-to-day, what is my saving, what is the initial purchase price, and what is my saving. You're right when saying that the customer, the B2C customer is not very well aware of this part of the thing. And that is where a large part of our education to the customer happens. So our dealers, we've trained them up to be able to talk to the customers on this perspective. So the dealers really take the customer through the journey. They in fact ask them questions like, okay, so how much are you going to travel? How much is it costing you? And this is what this vehicle would cost you. And a large part of that customer is, because it's done in such a simple manner, they do understand the nuances of it. They do understand the benefits that they're deriving out of it. And they do come back. So that's why we've got about 40% plus our repeat sales, or customers who already bought our vehicles and either get their family and relatives and family and friends to come back and buy a vehicle, or they're buying it from some other member of their family. So customers have begun to understand that. The population in terms of, when we look at the scale of people who understand it, is still very small. And that is why this industry is still in the nascent stages, or it's still small right now.
Despite that, it holds a lot of promise, and that explains why there are a lot of new players, and also because of the comparatively lower entry barrier to the EV industry compared to the ICE vehicle industry. We see a lot of new players with little or no background in automotive, especially in the two-wheeler space. How do you see it evolving? Do you think what are the key factors you think would be necessary for everyone to sustain, or do you think some may be kind of over the years kind of move out of the scene and find it difficult to continue the journey?
I don't think everybody is going to be able to sustain, to be honest. And that's the bitter truth. When we look at what's going to happen in electric industry is going to be somewhat similar of what's already happened in the past, what's already happened in the IC sector. So as more and more recognized, branded companies with the serious companies establish themselves and set up their base, their distribution network, their service network, the sales network, etc., unorganized players will fall off by the wayside, because one, they will not be able to match up to that quality, consistency in quality. They will not have that strong brand. So we have such a huge, very powerful hero brand with us, which is extremely well recognized across the country. So when a customer is going to an outlet, would he go to a hero outlet, or would he go to an unbranded one? And even if there is a premium here that he's paying, there is a little bit more that he's paying, on account of the quality. We find a lot of times customers actually do that because India is not necessarily the cheapest market in the world. India is a very value conscious market. So which means, you people want to derive value out of that product. Not necessarily the cheapest product will sell. As it is in the market, even within the EV space, for the same comparable products, we are more expensive than our competition. But that's because of the quality that we are able to deliver to them. That's because of the strong network that we are able to offer to them and the spares availability, etc. So we've, in the last over a decade of us being in the market, we've understood very well what to do. But more importantly, we've also understood what not to do.
What not to do.
And that's sometimes a very important factor.
Is the global market also in your radar? Even I know you are still focusing more focused, India focused as you grow your volumes, but simultaneously, do you plan to have the hero brand in the global EV industry also? I know you do have the A2B brand, which was acquired, but I'm talking about the hero brand.
There are certain markets where we are going to be more, we're going to have a stronger presence. At this point of time, international markets, even though we are there, we are pushing it and we are doing work on those, are not necessarily a focus market, simply because India is the largest two-wheeler market. And why would we, we have such a strong market here, we have such a strong brand, the dealer network is already established, and we are very well established with the customers. And so from all perspective, so the focus remains India right now, but certainly we would have international markets also where we would have a presence, and with the hero brand, absolutely.
And what I mean sense is that everyone's looking at exponential growth in the EV space, especially in two-wheelers. So if I were to ask you about, say, in the time frame of next 8 years or so, or 8-9 years, by 2030, what is the industry volume that you would expect for the electric two-wheeler segment in India?
So what we do actually is we have two figures that we look at. We look at the optimistic scenario, and then we look at a base case scenario. What is the worst that can happen? And at that worst case, does it still make sense or not? So let me give you the worst case scenario first. If things are as they are right now, or they get worse, or whatever be the case, the base case that we have is, even at a 30% scenario conversion, does the business make sense or not? And our estimation is that it does make sense, because the number would be about 10 to 12 million units at a 30% conversion by 2030. But that is absolutely the worst case scenario. Now, when you look at it in another scenario, which is the best case scenario, you could look at a 100% conversion. So that market could be a 30 million unit market. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to fall somewhere in between. And that could be anything from about 70, 80% or 65, 70%. That's difficult to ascertain at this point of time. But in any case, we are looking at a market which is anything from about 12 million units going upwards to about 30 million units at that point of time.
And by then, or somewhere in between, or maybe soon after that, would you look at riding into any other segments also?
If you mean beyond
two-wheelers or four-wheeled?
Not planned right now. So if something comes our way, we are more than happy to look at it. But right now, that's not in our strategy. Right now, we are focusing on converting this whole huge chunk. So when you look at India, 80% of the market actually is a two-wheeler market. And the other market, which is the four-wheelers, the cars, etc., we don't have the wherewithal to actually fight, or we don't have the wherewithal to actually capture a market share there, as against the big giants who are already there in the market. They do that job perfectly well. So that's not in our strategy at all. So we would focus on the light vehicles where we have a strength and where we have a better understanding of what to do and what not to do, than to go into a category where we're going to be an insignificant player in that at a global level. So there, global level comes more into perspective. In this, a local understanding comes more into perspective when you look at two-wheelers.
And as you execute the plans, I mean, when I say you, I mean the entire industry, as various initiatives also take shape. Do you think the new wave, COVID wave, may throw a spanner in the works in some way or the other?
See, I think the COVID wave may slow down something for a certain while, but it's also going to give a huge boost to the sector because people may not want to get onto public sector transport the way that they were earlier. So it's a double-edged sword. So while there may be some issues that get created, but that I believe, and this is what I said last year as well, and I'm going to say it again, this is temporary. This is not here to stay in the long run. So we are not letting us pull us down by any means. Whatever we projected at the beginning of this year, we are going to achieve those numbers and we're going to beat those numbers. And that's what we've done in the past as well. So I think there are going to be a lot of silver linings also, which are going to come out of this. And like I said, it's cheaper for us it's for a customer using electric mobility, electric two-wheeler. It's cheaper for him as against public transport as well, and far more convenient. No going to a petrol station, no going to a service station. In a lot of cases, the service also comes to you at home. You charge your vehicle at home and off you go. And as we are going along every year on year, the technology is improving. So the battery density is improving, the efficiencies are improving. So customers understand that. People who bought these vehicles understand that. And people who haven't bought these vehicles are sitting on the sidelines, observing the people who bought them and what the experiences are. And they are getting converted because the experiences are good ones. We've barely had a bad experience with these vehicles in the last 5-6 years. The technology and the batteries, the vehicle itself has improved dramatically in the last couple of years.
Going by your current performance and the projected performance for the industry as well as the company, it's only, it can be only expected that better days are ahead for Hero Electric and the EV industry. But it's not been quite easy for you. I mean, as you said, your first attempt was a failure. So was the second one. What kept you trying again and again? And what are before we end this interview, I just would you like to share anything which would be maybe serve as some kind of a guidance, if you like, for other entrepreneurs who may or may not be in the EV space, but maybe having dreams like you have, you have currently and you had earlier, and which you executed?
Yeah, I would say that if you believe in your model, and I was very, very clear when we started this electric bicycle also, I was trying to bridge a gap which existed in the whole industry of a person who was using a bicycle and then the scooter motorcycle. So I was trying to bridge that gap in between, maybe with a slightly wrong product at that point of time. Then again, 2004 attempted it again. The technology hadn't evolved at that point of time. Then 2007, again, we bridged that gap by plugging in scooters. And that's where the market began to take off. Now, along the way, while we've seen a lot of tailwinds with us, we've also seen a huge amount of headwinds. And so it's very important whenever you're creating a new industry, when you're trying to disrupt, it's very important to be agile. That's one factor. Second, believe in your dreams. If it's a product which is going to make a dramatic change, which is going to make a change in the market, and where you believe that it's going to make a change, then stick to it. Then give it all your push. Don't deviate from it. A lot of times people give up at a time when it's just beginning to take off, or when it's just beginning to this thing. You don't know when it's going to begin to take off. When it's really taken off. We believe that the cusp is here. We believe that it's hockey stick growth now. But I've been in this for 13, 14 years. I have no regrets on that, because the amount of experience and knowledge that we've got in-house is tremendous. That is going to be enviable. You can replicate technology. You can buy technology from elsewhere, but you can't replicate knowledge and experience that exists within that whole DNA that exists within the whole company, the supply chain, the dealers, everybody else. So one example I can give you is, why and how strongly we believe in this category is when in 2000, this is going back to 2011-12, and there was a huge recession in the market at that point of time. Dollar crashed, in rupee went from a 44 to 74 at that point. Oil crashed, and a whole load of other things happened at that point. Competition began to pull out because the vehicles had become far more expensive and people weren't really buying electric vehicles. When oil crashed at that time, people thought, that the petrol and diesel is going to be free. And so, why would I buy an electric as against IC?
I think it came down to close to $30 a barrel or something.
That's right, $38. Yeah, absolutely. From $130, it crashed at that point of time. So what we did then, we were very clear that this is only again a blip with the thing. It's not something which is going to remain forever. There will be a short time when there will be disruption in the market. There will be problems, of course, as we have right now, but we will get out of it eventually because the fundamentals are strong. The belief that we have, whether it is oil dependency, it's pollution, it's convenience, it's ease of use for somebody, all of those factors are very, very strong factors which are working for us in our favor in that manner. So what we did at that point, competition was pulling out, which we were telling them, even as the head of the association, not to do that. But I mean, companies have their own plans and they were pulling out of this thing. So suddenly, if you've got in a neighborhood 5 dealerships and 4 of them are shutting down or shut down already, it doesn't give a lot of confidence to the customers. So what we were doing at that point is actually telling our dealerships to service competition vehicles as well, because it's extremely important for the industry to survive before you can do so as a company. Yes. So if the industry is not really working, you as a company are not really, you're going to be insignificant. You may be a very large player, but of an insignificant industry, it doesn't make sense. Similarly, now, when you look at it, we are reskilling the roadside mechanics. Now, while they have a Hero Electric PGO outside or a roundel outside, which says that it's a Hero Electric service station, nevertheless, they are free to service competition vehicles as well. And that is where the whole industry is going to grow. And as the industry grows, we grow with the industry. So you have to, while you work on your micro, while you work on your day-to-day, you also have to look at the macro picture. That is where you have to push.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And some of these messages would serve as good advice and guidance to many other emerging entrepreneurs. So, Mr. Munjal, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you. And best wishes for you and your team for this year and the subsequent years as well.
Thank you so much, Sumantra. It's a pleasure being here. Do take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you in person sometime very soon.
I'm here too. Please take care and stay safe.
You too.
And thank you for watching this episode of the Autocar Professional Dialogue. Hope you liked it. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep sharing your views and comments. And thanks once again. And please take care and stay safe.